Welcome to College Launch. I am your host, Mary Roberts, and I am passionate about transition, and especially the transition that students make when they move from home to college. I am the author of Create Your Space, Create Your Life. Set yourself up for success at college. And today, we have Leslie Wagner here to interview me about my book. Leslie is a Carlisle resident who works at the Concord Health Center. She is an actress who has participated in community theater in the Boston area for 14 years. She has also made local TV commercials. Leslie is the mother of 2 children, and her oldest daughter is now a graduate student at Northeastern University.
Mary, thank you so much for inviting me and allowing me to interview you. Mary Roberts is an author, a musician, a feng shui expert, as well as a mother of 2 college graduates. She wrote this lovely book, Create Your Space, Create Your Life, Set Yourself Up for Success in College. And Mary Roberts launched Successful Spaces to create individualized living and a working space that helps people realize their highest potential. A pioneer in student environments, Mary has transformed hundreds of dorm rooms, and her work has been featured by the Boston Globe, Boston Magazine, the Campus Magazine, Harvard's Frieze Magazine, and the Associated Press. Mary, I read the book, and I found it very, very interesting and applicable to everyday life, not just for students, but for me as well. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, in 2003, I was contacted by a senior at Middlesex Boarding School in Concord who was doing an independent study in feng shui. Now, what is feng shui?
That's a good question.
Simply put, it is the art and science of creating the most suitable living and working space for the individual. So Mackenzie, the student, had not been sleeping well in her dorm room.
I think that's quite a typical problem
Very
for
typical.
a lot of students.
And when I visited her, I could see why immediately.
What was the problem?
Well, it had to do with her bed placement, which was on the door wall, which can be a very difficult place to feel relaxed in. And her walls were just plastered with pictures and photographs of friends at parties and having fun. It was not a serene environment. So in 1 hour, I gave her some basic principles, which she applied to her room that weekend. It was a clean sweep, and she did it all on her own. And that night, after she had changed her room, by moving furniture, calming down those walls, removing a lot of images from the walls and putting up some still lifes, she slept for 13 hours.
Wow.
I returned a week later to visit and take note of what she had done, and I couldn't believe it. It didn't feel like the same space. It felt so much calmer and even felt larger. So in this environment, which she came to love, that's one thing she said, now I love being in my room.
Oh, that's so important.
Yeah, it is important because it's where they spend the greatest amount of time, simply because they sleep there, hopefully 8 hours a day. And she found that she was able to concentrate better and focus on her schoolwork so that she completed it in 1 to 2 hours less each day. She also was able to tune into herself and get to know herself better. And she said, before I used to stay up until 1 or 2 a.m. finishing my schoolwork. Now at 11 or 12, when I'm finishing up, I notice I'm tired and I go to bed. Her grades were already good. She was spending less time on her schoolwork, but her grades stayed the same. And when I saw these results, I thought, this is something that can help more students.
So is that what ultimately made you decide to write this book?
Well, yes, I started speaking on dozens of college campuses and consulting with students also, from Cal Berkeley to Harvard, MIT, Tufts, BU, Emory University, mid-sized schools like College of the Holy Cross, and some big universities like University of South Carolina and University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
The whole gamut of colleges.
Everyone was so much fun. But even those small liberal arts colleges like Mills College in Oakland, California, or Skidmore in upstate New York, Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida. And what I noticed after being in hundreds of spaces that students live in is that they are challenging. And students are under a lot of stress, and I feel like they're putting themselves under even more stress by the nature of their living spaces. So I wanted to write a guide to give students the know-how to set up their rooms so that they felt comfortable and safe, so that they could get better grades, stay in school, and move into the world.
You know, you talking about the challenging spaces that students often come across when they're moving to dorms and apartments. I remember when my daughter transferred to Northeastern University in her undergraduate second year and was put in a small student apartment. Her bedroom was the size of a closet. She could hardly fit anything in, and it did impact. I mean, I think she felt very claustrophobic. There was no room for anything. She had no place to go to really relax, and she came home a lot because of that. So I think your book would have come in handy had we known about it. How is the book organized?
Well, I'd like to back up and comment. Your daughter is not unique. I have received emails from students all around the country. One said, "I'm so cramped in this room. I have no place to put my things. I feel like the walls are closing in on me. Please help."
Wow.
And that came from St. Louis. And then another said, "We have 2 desks, 2 beds, 2 end tables, and 2 wardrobes, but it just doesn't feel like a home. These rooms are small, the furniture is oversized, and they have to keep it in the rooms. What on earth do they do?"
And it must be very challenging because often there's no room for even rearranging the furniture.
I have one parent, because I consult with a lot of parents. She said, "We spent hours trying to rearrange the furniture to find a workable setup, and we just couldn't find one."
And I think because of the size of the rooms and that problem, that often a lot of the students wind up with rooms filled with clutter, and their floors are covered, they can't find anything, and it makes it very difficult to function.
Yes. So you asked about the 3 sections of the book.
Yes, I'm wondering now, when a student has this and they're often very busy, like how can they look at this book and make it work for them? How is it organized? I found it nicely organized.
My co-writer, Chrissy Callahan, who is now a professional journalist for an online magazine called She Knows. But Chrissy was a senior journalism major at Brandeis University when I went there to do an article for Her Campus magazine, and they also created a film. And Chrissy, after she graduated, helped me to write and organize this book, and she created the 3 sections: get going, get settled, and keep going.
Great.
So the get going, since you mentioned clutter, is for students who are still living at home. They've been accepted at their colleges, but they still have a few months before they're actually going to move to campus. And that home bedroom for many students, is one they may have occupied all their lives. And like most teenagers, they accumulate a lot of things and they don't
yes.
realize it.
Definitely.
So this is a perfect time. They're in a transition. They're shedding the familiar roles and identities as a high school student and about to go into the unknown. It's a great time to look around their space and ask some questions. What do I have around here that expresses who I am now? And what's outdated? It's a perfect time to eliminate those outdated items, because then their room becomes a platform that launches them from home to their new lives as college students.
That makes a lot of sense.
What's interesting about this stage is that it seems like it's all about the stuff, but it's really about them and the changes that they're making as they go into the world.
Absolutely, and the questions that you formulated, I think can be applicable to anybody in any walk of life, any stage of life.
Are you talking about my funnel system?
Yeah, well, I guess I didn't realize it, but I guess I am talking. What is the funnel system?
The funnel system are it's a set of 5 questions that students, and actually anyone, can ask of items when they're moving from one space to another. They can ask this question of the items that they're going to take with them. The first question is, will it fit?
Good question.
And the second is, will I use it? Third, will I need it? Fourth, does it express who I am now or who I'm going to become? And fifth, do I love it? So if you can't answer yes to at least one of those questions about the item you're looking at, there's no point in bringing it with you.
Yeah, I would even think that if you can't answer yes to 2 or 3 of those questions, that would certainly help narrow it down.
I agree.
I mean, it's something that I think you inspired me after I read the book to go through my kitchen and my cabinets that had accumulated with papers and things from many years ago. And I very overzealously started clearing out old bank books and checkbooks to the point where I not only had a huge garbage bag full, but I broke my shredder. I just started trying to shred things that should not have been put in the shredder. So now I have to go buy a new one, but it was worth it. Although I do feel that I've just done the tip of the iceberg. Now I have to go upstairs. I have closets to organize. And all those questions in your funnel system will help me figure out what has to go, stay.
So Leslie,
thank you.
Are you saying you feel a little lighter in spirit having gotten rid of all those things?
Definitely, because I think when you're living amongst clutter and disorganization, it makes you feel stressed, frustrated, and sometimes irritable.
Mm-hmm. So just imagine students across the country having to downsize, especially the ones that didn't have the advice from my book and have brought too many things to school, and then match that with 1 or more roommates who've probably brought too many things. And it does start to feel a little bit irritable for people to have to keep going in this environment.
I can imagine, because there's so many things that a new student has to deal with when they go to a new college, new roommates, the room, the academic piece of the puzzle, that if you don't have kind of a serene atmosphere that's organized, it must make it so difficult to adjust to all the changes.
Well, I feel that these rooms can be what makes or breaks some students to decide whether they're going to stay at college or leave. These rooms are a critical factor in being able to actually settle in and learn.
Absolutely. And you know, I was reading an article in the Boston Globe not too long ago about the fact that the traditional 4-year stint that many students used to go through to graduate college is no longer applicable, and that nowadays students are taking 6 or more years to actually finish college. And I think many more students are transferring, as my daughter did. So you're looking at many years of dorms, apartments, moving, packing, that you know, that continues much longer. And I find it ironic that, you know, so many parents nowadays plan so well for their children to get into college.
Right.
But once they're there, it's kind of, you just move their stuff in and then leave. And that's where I think your book can kind of pick up the slack.
Yes.
And fill in that gap of when they get there.
Well, who would think that where you put your bed and your desk, or which posters you select and where you place them, or whether you have a certain kind of air filter that could actually give your child a head start for a better experience of college. These are the things I talk about in my book.
Right. I mean, some things really struck me, and they stayed with me. Having something heavy in your room to kind of keep you grounded, I loved that analogy.
Well, there are a lot of students who just want to be out and about and experiencing everything. I had a Clark University student say, when I was a freshman, I'd sit down to start doing my schoolwork, and then somebody would walk by and say, "Hey, let's go to a movie," and he'd say, "Yeah, a movie."
A little too antsy.
But yes, the idea that a heavy object, you know, can actually ground you, so that you're going to stay put and do what it is you need to do.
Yeah, I really love some of your very short sayings, because I think that it's just like good little cues to keep in your mind for anybody when you're redecorating or just trying to plan a room. More light, more energy. Clean, serene. And so I find them very helpful.
Well, yes, speaking of the lighting, there are so many wonderful ways to use lighting in a dorm room. There's the wonderful OTT light. This helped my son.
What kind of light was that? The OTT light.
It simulates natural daylight, so that when you are reading, your eyes do not tire as easily. My son found this light very, very helpful when he was in college, to be able to sit down at his desk and focus on his reading. But then there are what we call torchieres, or uplights, that can illuminate a dark corner and give a feeling of more space. So I talk about the 4 types of lighting in one of my chapters, and yes, more light, more energy. And it's so critical. You know, your environment is a very important but overlooked success factor, and yet it has such an impact on college students. And one example, I've met many students who will say, I lived in the front of my house in a room just filled with sunlight. You know, now I'm living in the back of this dorm, overlooking a dumpster, and there's hardly any light. Well, just imagine the psychological impact.
Absolutely.
Of having to make that change, in addition to all the changes you just mentioned, of having to make new friends, adapt to a new type of learning, and also taking on new roles and identities. What we want to do with a book like mine is to make the environment, their immediate surroundings, support them as they have to navigate all these changes.
Yeah, it's such an important thing that is so often overlooked. What is a power spot?
Oh, a power spot is a place in the room where, let's imagine that your bed is in the power spot of the room, that would mean that you're in the back of the room and to one side, and the head of your bed is supported by a solid wall. Now just imagine if you're sitting or sleeping in that bed, you can see your entire room, and you can see the door, so you know who's going,
Right.
You're prepared if someone is coming in or out. So it's this idea that you can see your entire space, and you have a feeling of control. And I mentioned this Middlesex boarding school student where she had her bed on the door wall, so she could not see who was coming in and out of the door. And that created a little bit of subconscious stress that I think contributed to her sleep problem. And of course, when she moved the bed to the power spot, she was able to sleep soundly.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I enjoyed the book so much, and the different tips on how to live, where I think that it's not just something that could be applied to a student's life, but in every walk of life. And anybody who's downsizing, moving, could benefit from the tips that you put forth in the book.
We all need to keep our spaces clean and tidy. We all need to sort through our things and only keep with us what's useful and current. We need to surround ourselves with things we love. We want to live in a space that has a good climate, which means good air quality, good ventilation. We want the right temperature, you know, the one that keeps us most comfortable.
Right.
All these things are concerns for college students.
Absolutely.
We want to keep our closets organized. Can I tell you something about closets from a feng shui perspective?
You can.
Closets and other storage spaces represent what is hidden in us, which also means it represents our thought process. So if we have overstuffed closets, it may translate into feeling like we have too much on our minds. Well, just imagine, and I've seen many student closets in dorms, and they are overstuffed. Well, if they have to sit down and write a paper, and they're just feeling like they've got too much on their minds, it's not going to be as easy to complete that project. So when you clean out your closet, you can clear your mind.
Absolutely. It really is fascinating. Create your space, create your life. This gentleman by the name of James Malinchak, who's a Time National College Speaker of the Year, wrote in a review, "Wow, I love this book and every college student needs to read it. Mary Roberts has put together a resource that is brilliant and that every college and university should give to every one of their students." That is terrific, Mary. Where can people get this book?
Well, yes, where can people get this book? Because I would say that there's a lot in this book that can benefit both parents and students before they even arrive on campus. It's a great book to have in your senior year of high school, and you can get it on Amazon, and it's both available in paperback and as an Amazon Kindle.
Wonderful, Mary. Mary, thank you so much for enabling me to read the book, which, as I said, I think will be wonderful for not only students, but for anybody who's in a moving situation. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, Leslie, thank you so much for reading my book.
It's my pleasure.
And then being here today to talk with me about the book. So thank you for tuning in to College Launch. And we look forward to seeing you the next time. I'm Mary Roberts, your host.